All right, so we're at day 11. We made it. Get out of here. So I'm doing everything to stay on track here. Every day I get home at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, it seems, from doing all kinds of stuff during the day. And the process of shooting the video is not very long. I could do it kind of quickly. But it's the uploading to YouTube that can take forever. Even like with a 20-minute video, it's like ridiculous. I know. So first I edit the whole thing in iMovie, which takes time. Like I sit there and lay all the footage out, pick music, photos I want to stick in there, and when it's all ready, then you have to download it to the computer. And I have a decent connection. I don't think I have like horrible internet here, but good grief, it takes forever. What? You're talking like 3 to 4 hours sometimes. So that's why it's popping up at 3, 4, 5 a.m. sometimes. I'm like hitting publish at 1 in the morning, and then it has to sit there. But anyway, here we are at day 11. Today we're going to talk about Frankenstein. Karloff Frankenstein, to be exact. Frankenstein is not only one of my favorite monsters of all time, but everyone says, what's your favorite mask? I cannot answer that question, but one of the top 2 or 3 is Frankenstein masks. So we're going to start off with, we're going to do 3 Frankensteins today, all Karloffs, all Don Post. And I want to show you, we're going to go backwards. We're going to start at 1983, go back to 1973, and then back to 1969, which is the best. And I'm going backwards because I want you to see how through molding processes, the masks can shrink, they can become distorted over the years. So as they put these masks out over the years from 69 up, they kind of start looking, kind of lousy in the 80s compared to what they used to look like in the 60s. And so I want to go backwards to show you, like, hey, this one's cool, this one's really cool, but look at this one from 1969. It's freaking incredible. So that's why we're going to go backwards, starting at 83. And it's still a great mask. And they sold a lot of these, from what I know. It was a very popular mask. In 1983, they finally re-released Universal characters again, like the Creature, Frankenstein. I think Mole Man was one of them, but this 83 Karloff I'm going to start off with was, you'll see a lot of these surface over the years on eBay and stuff and in people's collections because they're kind of easily accessible. If you want to start collecting monster masks, the 80s Karloffs are a good one to start with because you can, it's not like unobtainable, but it is getting harder to find really nice copies. The one I'm going to show you is unworn and it's tagged still. And when I got it, it looked even better, but over the years, the color's starting to change a little bit. But let's dig in with Boris Karloff, the Frankenstein monster, made up as a Don Post Halloween mask. All right, before we start, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Sam, one of the coolest monster kids in the world. He's watching right now. His dad and I are taking him to go see The Who tomorrow night. Oh my God, it's going to be so cool. This has been the year for concerts. It's been insane how many concerts I've seen so far this summer. But tomorrow, the frickin' Who. Who? Yeah. So, Sam, thanks for watching. Your dad said you watch every one of these videos, so I had to give you a shout out, and I'll see you tomorrow, dude. So, now, we are here in 1983 with the Karloff Frankenstein and these crazy monster Frankenstein monster hands they produced in 83. I won't get too much into those. They're a lot different than any of the previous Frankenstein hands. A lot of people don't like them for some reason. They're kind of goofy and cartoonish, you know, big crazy fingernails with holes in them and stuff. They got neat stitches, but I think they're cool. But the mask is the main thing we're here to talk about. And this one came from a famous collection, the Dr. Shocker collection. And that, my friends, is my friend Dan Roebuck, the actor who plays Grandpa in the new Rob Zombie monster film. He had one of the most incredible monster collections out there for many years, and masks. He ended up downsizing, but he still has tremendous things. But this came from his collection, God, 12 years ago, maybe? I don't really know. It was a long time ago. So when I got this thing, it was super pristine. You can see it's still tagged. Now here's the 83 tag. Remember, I've been showing you 1982 black and white tags. In 83, they switched to this blue version of the care tag, the care sheet. So this was produced in 83 at Don Post Studios. The 80s Karloffs are easily recognizable. Number one, they've got this large scar down here on the lower left cheek, and a big gash on his head here. And they kind of paint them all similar with like this flesh color and red paint. And they really, I don't want to say overdid it. It's a real noticeable, you know, paint detail. And he had little bolts, little silver bolts. But the 80s, there was something else with the blood around the bolts in his head up here. These clamps. Maybe the red was put on the 80s masks and it wasn't on the previous ones. I'm pretty sure that was another detail. But as you can see, it looks like a really nice Frankenstein mask. This one, through the foam filling process, the eyelids kind of puffed out like upwards a little, you know. I think they should kind of be down slightly. It's kind of throwing off that Karloff feature. They're kind of like sticking up like wings almost, but those, in my opinion, should just go down slightly. Great mask though. It's got decent size. There's different versions of this. There's a wide scar version with a really wide scar up here. It's really rare. I mean, I've only seen like 2 or 3 wide scar versions pop up ever. You know, I used to have one. So, but most of the ones you'll see out there are this version. And this thing, when I got it, the coloring was gorgeous. And over time, it's losing its colors. It's kind of like changing, and it's basically aging. It's getting a patina to it. Some of the colors are probably fading, which, you know, I'm okay with it. Of course, it looked killer when I got it, but it's kind of not where it used to be as far as the looks and the intensity of the flesh tones. But it's cool because it's getting older every day. So, one thing, as they kept making these Karloff masks through the years, they would make new molds at the factory. I don't know the exact process they executed when they made these Karloffs through the years, but so when they would bring this mask out again, they'd make a brand new mold of it from an older mold or an older master. But you keep doing that over and over and over. Number one, you start losing size on a mask, but you also start getting a little different shape in the head here. Like these 80s Karloffs always seemed rounded to me, like on the head. You didn't have that nice flat Frankenstein look anymore. There's a slope here, see that? And it's sloped back there. And, you know, it's curved on the sides, and it's just looking different than its predecessor, okay? That's all I want to say about that. Great mask, but you're going to see as we go back in time, they were a lot cooler. So, this won't be easy to find, though. If you guys want to start collecting monster masks, type in Don Post Frankenstein, and the 80s Karloffs, they're out there from time to time. You know, they did re-release masks in 1998 under the Calendar Mask reissue project, You'll see Frankensteins like this with like a purple box, purple and a green box. Those are 98 reissues. They were not wearable masks. Those 98 reissues are small. They were made for collectors only, basically. They're super small. Guys would like cut the backs open thinking they could fit them over their heads, and they're just, they ruin them. So a lot of those reissues out there, if you're planning on collecting them, just know they're smaller than a production mask from the 80s or especially 60s and 70s. You'll notice when you start researching this stuff, if you're looking at the 98 reissues, a lot of them look brown. Like they have like a darker, not that bad, but some are super brown, but they'll look like they have a nice tan. It's because of this crazy clear coat they used in 98. A lot of the calendar masks, depending on the lighting they were in, turned brown. We call it rust, mask rust. Sometimes you can kind of wash it off, but in most cases, no. So just know, if you're buying a calendar reissue with that box or without the box, and you see the brown, that's not what it looked like when it was new. It looked more like this, but they all kind of just, the clear coats went to shit. So still great masks. There's great features on the Karloff reissue. You know, it's a nice looking Karloff, but a lot of guys repaint them, you know, so keep that in mind. You can always repaint it or have someone repaint it if it's super brown and super rusty. But the ones that don't have rust, some were stored away in a dark closet in the box and they're super pristine, they will fetch a lot more money because they don't have that rust, you know. And if you end up getting one like that where it's got superior color, I wouldn't stick it under fluorescent lighting and keep it like in a room where your collection lights are going to be on all the time, because it's probably going to change and get rusty over time. So now you got a good look at this. You know, you could kind of see, I'll go this way so you can really see the shape of that head. Now we're going to go back 10 years to 1973 with a really, really neat Frankenstein mask in hands that I scored. All right, now this one, you could see the actual features of Karloff's face are looking a lot cooler here. And he's got more of a squared off head. You see that? See that nice flat top and that nice forehead? That's what I'm talking about. That's what got lost in that transition from the 70s to the 80s with these Frankenstein masks. So this mask, a lot of guys know what I'm about to say that are in the collecting forums I'm in. This 73 popped up in a Facebook group with these hands, and it did not quite look like this. First off, it was a very rare mask. Any 60s and 70s Frankenstein mask is going to be pretty rare and very sought after. This one had gorgeous skin tones. Like the patina on this one was incredible. It had these cool blue tones in there, and the way it aged, I went crazy when I saw it. So the hands, though, were flat as a pancake. And I mean, like flat like a board, hard as a rock, discolored, disgusting looking. They did not look like this. And the mask, however, if you take a closer look, you're going to see the eye holes were cut too big on this mask. And I believe it was done at the factory. I think somebody at the factory was helping cut out the masks that day, because the factory paint was on the edges of the cuts, okay? Normally, if you start cutting an old mask up, you're going to notice that the edges are clean. There's no paint on the edges. But this mask definitely had factory, that light blue on those edges of the cuts. So it kind of told me that maybe somebody was helping out that day that really wasn't that great at carving out the eyes on the Karloffs. Who knows? We'll never know. But it turned off a few guys of buying the mask. You know, it's like once that's done, a mask is ruined to a lot of people. And I still wanted it. I'm like, I got to get that mask. and it was in Michigan. I drove like an hour and a half. I did a deal with the guy. I went and picked up the mask in hands. I'm going to show you what this all looked like when I got it. So now you can really see how those eyes were cut out way too big, but the rest of the mask looks great. Like, I don't care that it's got the vintage glue on it. I mean, that's, to me, that's cool. Like, that's just adds to its character. To make a long story short, I did some restoration work to this set, and it's one of the best things I've ever done, honestly. And I'm going to toot my own horn here. So I talked with my buddy Pete. I'm like, I need to find someone with a Frankenstein, a Karloff mold, a mask mold. He and I talked. I said, maybe we can pour some latex eye inserts out of another Karloff mold. There's Karloff molds out there, you know, floating around. So we found somebody that had the mold. I had them pour latex eye inserts for me that I later trimmed to fit this nice and perfect, okay? And because this thing is missing the bags under the eyes, okay? The Karloff masks, especially when you get to the older ones, I don't know if you could really see with this camera, but I'm gonna try to get in there. See those little bags under the eyes? Like, that was all missing, and that's an important feature of this mask, so it really was not looking like it should. I said, maybe I could fake this thing. Maybe I can put in inserts from the back from a Frankenstein Karloff mold, fake it, match that color. I matched this. It's probably looking too blue on camera right now. It's not that blue. It's a very light, you know, color. I'm going to fake the color, or fake the look of it, I should say, by blending that color in. And I got the eye inserts in there, and man, it was night and day. It really brought the features back on this Karloff that were missing, you know. And even though you could see the obvious edges, it really, really worked. I mean, it looks, you know, I guess 10 times better, if you ask me. And it was an easy fix, but man, well worth the effort, you know. So I was surprised I got the color that perfect. Usually it can be tough for me to match colors, but man, I knocked it out of the park with that. Then I ended up painting the pupils black, so it give the illusion that there's holes in it. I glued in those eye inserts, and then the mask was out of shape. Like the neck was out of shape. So I did some heat treatments on it. I'm going to do a whole video soon on this secret heat treatment process I keep speaking of. So just hang tight on that. It's coming, because I'm going to start messing with some masks. I got the neck, you know, straightened out a lot better. It was way off. It was all misshapen. And I sent it to a buddy of mine who's really good at foam filling masks. He used to foam fill masks for me with a hot foam out of a gun. It would inject the hot foam into the mask, and the heat of that foam really helps manipulate old latex. Like, it would really aid in the process of getting the shape of these masks back to where they were. He was a master at foam filling. You know, he's the best. And he's done, if there's a mask that's foam filled in this collection, which is many of them, it was done by him. So with the aid of his foam filling and then the work I did, the two of us got this mask looking really, really nice. Then the hands. Okay, this was a huge challenge. Let me put these hands up here. You see what they look like when they got here. So I started messing around with hot water treatments, really, really hot water in my kitchen sink. I would soak these hands, you know, for several minutes at a time, working my fingers inside of them slowly like a glove, because they were stuck together. I mean, really fused together. And that hot water allowed me to soften these things up and eventually get my fingers into the holes like a glove. And I got to the point where it was staying kind of soft. It wasn't getting rock hard. They were rock hard. It was keeping them somewhat soft. You know, when they were in the hot water, I'd get their shape back. And I told my friend, I go, in hot water, they're cool. Like you could actually fill them with hot water, hold the glove up, and it would look like a rubber glove full of water. Like it would go bing. You dump the water out and it would go, you know. So he's thinking, he goes, hey, send them to me. And I'm thinking with that hot foam, it's again going to aid in keeping these the shape I wanted them to be again, which was the nice shape of the hands. And he was right. So it was a miracle. I mean, this was hours and hours and hours of manipulating these in hot water. It was not easy. I would never, if someone came to me and said, could you do that to my hands? I'd say, nope. So then I said, I'm going to repaint them because they're all discolored. So I faked the skin color and the blue. I put the blue in there just like the mask had those blue highlights. I got the blue in there, and I painted the fingernails black again, but I weathered these hands. I weathered them to look like they were beat up like the mask is. Okay, so that mask and hands, I wanted to look like they were kind of sitting around. They were sitting together for decades, but I really wanted them to look nice again and make them look like they wore nicely and not got run over by a semi truck. So honestly, it's probably one of the best restoration things I've done with a set like this. You know, the paint was super nice, like when I airbrushed the base color on them. So I took masking tape and I'd kind of stick it on there and pull it off, and you'd get that paint loss, you know, even on the fingers. So it looked like, you know, the paint was wearing off. See all those little chips of paint? That was all done with masking tape. I made it look like they were thrown around in a basement, you know, for 40 years. And it worked out really well. I fogged the fingernails so they weren't glossy black. I made them look, you know, like they were just old airbrush paint. And I'm telling you, this is one of my favorite repaints I've ever done. So that is the 73 Karloff. And my friend helped me date this mask to 73 by the way, number one, it was the skin tones and the way they stopped doing this seam on the way they did the hair at the factory. He was able to determine that this is most likely 1973. So I call it 73. It's definitely coming from a guy who is one of the most knowledgeable in the entire hobby. Taught me a lot. Taught me, you know, a lot. Most of the stuff I know about these masks, I've learned from him over the years. So amazing, right? What a difference from that 83 to 73 going back in time. I'm going to put the 83 next to it so you guys can kind of compare the two heads. Keep in mind, necks can be trimmed shorter than the other. You know, the features on the masks are very close in size, meaning the jaw, the nose, you know, the eyes and foreheads. But look at the tops of the heads. Can you see what I'm getting at? Frankenstein, you know, should have that nice flat head there. These are just too rounded, in my opinion, those 80s Karloffs. So that's one thing that really is a big appeal to me with finding vintage Frankensteins, is the shape of that head. It's so much cooler. Still, awesome mask, but I mean, they're getting cooler as we're going back in time, right? Now it's about to get even cooler. We're going to go back even farther. From 73 back to 1969. And look at that. Now you're seeing how much cooler they get as you go back and back and back. And this is by far the greatest Frankenstein mask I own in my whole collection. This now, in 69, the 60s Karloffs always had incredible size. He's got that nice definition to his head too. And keep in mind, they were foam filled, so brand new, the heads were even squarer. You know what I'm saying? So that 69 would have even been sharper as far as those features on top of the head. But man, this thing is insane. Look at that. Now that is a killer Karloff. As you go back to the 60s Karloffs, they were like that grayish skin tone like you're seeing. And I love the paint details on this one. If we went even farther back, like to the earlier 60s, you would have dark circles under here, like black airbrushed in under the eyes, and it would look even older. And I tell you what, I'm searching for one from the early 60s like you can't imagine. It'll have different paint details under those eyes, and that's a good indication that it's an early 60s Karloff. So that 69 Karloff has a nice tall forehead. You see how much taller the forehead is? The neck is longer. It's trimmed nicely. And back in the 60s, you know, those Frankenstein heads were massive. I've seen a lot of pictures of them. I've talked to guys that had them, you know, in 1965, 68, and they said they were just massive. And there were even some green ones out there, but it don't get much cooler than that. I mean, it kind of does, but we're getting to the, to me, the pinnacle of Don Post Frankenstein masks is those 60s Karloffs. Look at that baby. And this one is the one featured in the Illustrated History of Don Post Studios by Lee Lambert. The book on Don Post was written by my friend Lee, and this one is featured in the book. I was too, by the way. So I think that was a good combination for this 11th video. The Karloff Frankensteins are some of my favorite masks of all time, especially when they get older and older. So check it out. If you ever see one of these surface for sale, let me know. I will pay finder's fees. If you help me score something incredible for this collection, I will hook you up. Trust me. But man, aren't these awesome? So much cooler than the 80s release. Although I have a lot of respect for those 80s Karloffs. So I will see you guys again for the 12th day. And I hope you enjoyed seeing these cool Frankensteins. Definitely, like I said, to me, one of the greatest monsters of all time, and one of the greatest monster masks ever is the Frankenstein mask.